Hi quilters, this is Chris from needlepointers.com sharing with you a tutorial to make this fabulous Hunter Star quilt. This quilt was made by my daughter Kate and myself using our Accuquilt Go Big cutter, the Hunter Star block on board die, and a free tutorial from Accuquilt. The Hunter Star die made the cutting of the pieces for this quilt very easy and quick. The die also cuts off the points, so there are no points to be trimmed after the blocks are sewn together. We made our quilt smaller than the one in the Accuquilt pattern since we wanted a lap size quilt. And we also added borders to our quilt. If you would like to see a photo tutorial of this project, learn more about the Accuquilt fabric cutting system, or find the die for this project, please click the link in the description of this video to visit our website. Let's get started making this quilt. For our Hunter Star quilt, I am going to use this dark blue fabric with a silver imprint on it, and this is a line of fabric that's available in 2021 from your local quilt store, and it's a line of fabric by P&B Textiles, and it's one of their Christmas lines. For the white fabric, I just picked this white fabric with a light swirl pattern in the background. So the Hunter Star will be created with these two fabrics, and we are going to use our Go Big cutter and the Hunter Star cutting die to cut out all the blocks. We have a tutorial on exactly how to use this Hunter Square die to cut out your fabrics and how to assemble the actual block as a previous video. So if you missed that video and would like to see it, please click the link in the iCard or the description of the video. Take a look for that video and find out how easy it is to create the Hunter Square block using this die and the instructions that we give on assembly. So we'll get started and make up all the blocks for the quilt and be back with the next steps. So we've assembled all the blocks together and I started piecing them together. And one thing I did notice is that in order to have all of your blocks fit together at the very end, when they are actually 12-inch blocks, and so that when the 12-inch blocks get put together, that they are alternating properly in the corners, it's very important that you assemble all of the 4-inch blocks together in the same exact orientation. So when I put these blocks together, I made sure that the leftmost block always had the blue along the top here as the top one. So you can see these two blocks are assembled like that, because I found when I assembled this block, you can see the difference. This block has a white here and a blue on this side, and no matter which way I turn it, it's always got the white and the blue, and the white and the blue, which is opposite of these. So I was just looking at how I was going to assemble these blocks into the quilt, and I was very confused for a while because I'm sitting here going, wait, why are these always the same color next to each other all the way around, no matter which way I turn this block? And that's when I realized that this block was assembled differently than this block. This one has the blue always on the left and the white on the right. So now, if I take another block that was assembled in the same manner with the blue here and the white here, then they match up perfect. So I can put it there. When I put the block there, it will line up. When it's assembled on this side, it'll be opposite. The colors will be opposite. And when you assemble it up top, you know, no matter which way, when you're putting all the pieces together, they will always assemble with the opposites. So that way you won't end up with two of the same color next to each other in your stars. So that's just a very handy tip that when you're assembling the blocks, make sure you do them consistently. So I'm going to have to take this block apart and reassemble it back together in the proper way. I'm looking forward to getting the rest of this quilt together, and I'll be back after we start assembling the rows together. So we have all 20 blocks finished for our quilt, and ours is going to be a lap size quilt, so we've sized it down from the original pattern from Accuquilt. At this point I have laid all the blocks out so that I can make sure that all of the stars are properly colored, alternating the colors all the way around for every block. But if you were careful along the way and assembled your blocks all in the same way, like I had suggested earlier, then this will be easy, because it doesn't matter which orientation you put each block in, because as you turn them, it's in the right orientation no matter which way it is. The one thing I am paying attention to as I'm putting these blocks down is to make sure that my seams are going to interlock again, and so I have one seam facing this way and the other seam facing that way. I've checked that in all of these middle of the block connections to make sure that when I sew them together they will interlock properly, and it will help get the blocks aligned when sewing together. The next step is to sew the rows together, and that by turning the pieces over together, lining up the sides and the seams and make sure they're interlocking correctly, and sewing the 1/4 inch seam. Then continue by adding the next one in the row and the next one so that you get the full rows. And then after you get rows sewn together, you can sew the this row to that row to that row all the way up and get the whole top sewn together. So I'll be back after I've finished sewing together the top. Now we have the whole top assembled into one piece, and the next step will be to add some borders, which will be in the same blue fabric as used in the top. We're planning on adding 3-inch borders all the way around, and that will give the quilt just a little bit more size. Alright, to cut the borders, first we want to line up our fabric along one of the lines on the cutting mat so that it's straight, and then I need to trim off just a small amount off the edge here to straighten the edge. And then to add the borders on this quilt, we will need to cut 6 strips at 3 inches. So I'm using my ruler to measure the 3 inches here. So it's 1, 2, 3, and then I will cut my strips. So I'll be back after I'm done cutting these strips. So the length of the width of fabric strips will not be long enough to go across the entire side of the quilt. So what I will do is miter them 2 strips together, which then will give me a long enough strip to do on the sides and the top of the quilt. So to do that, I've put the strips together on a 90-degree angle, as you can see, and with right sides together. And then I've pinned it, and I've drawn a line from this corner to this corner, and that's my stitching line. So then when I open this up, the way you know is when you open up after it's stitched, you should have a nice contiguous strip. If you test that and it's the other direction, you don't have a contiguous strip, Like if you did it this way, then you'll know that you have your line the wrong direction. We have a full tutorial on how to miter strips together like this, so if you need more information on that, check the link in the description of this video. So now that I have those ready, so then I'm just going to sew along this line. And when I take the pins out, you'll see when I open it up, now it's a contiguous strip with a nice mitered edge. I will then, after I miter the strips together, I will trim this triangle off so that there's just a 1/4 inch seam left here, and then press the seams open or to one side or the other. It's your choice. And then we'll be ready to put these onto the side of the quilt. I'll be back after I've completed all of the mitering. Here's the mitered seam all trimmed and ironed open, and there's the other side. So next we will sew this strip onto the side of the quilt with a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, so I have that sewn on, and I will press it open nicely. And when you're adding the borders, add like either the top and the bottom first, or the two sides first, and then add the other two. So we'll be back after we have all the borders on. So all the borders are on the quilt now, and we iron the seams and iron the borders open. So the next step is to create a backing for this quilt. The fabric sitting there on the left is the backing fabric we're going to use for this quilt, and so we'll cut a piece and probably have to put two pieces together to make a backing big enough. We have a friend with a long arm machine who is going to quilt the layers together with an all-over pattern. To prepare the quilt for that, we just need to make the backing 4 inches larger than the quilt all the way around, because that gives her a little bit extra room for when she's laying the quilt out. And we'll provide some batting for the quilt, and then once it comes back we will put the binding on. So we will come back after we have all that finished and show you the completed quilt. I'm back with the finished quilt. A friend of ours, Becky Carr of Sugar Love Quilting, did the fabulous quilting design on this quilt with her long arm machine. We decided to use a simple spiral pattern for the quilt design with white thread. We love how the quilting turned out. You can see the quilting design a bit better from the back. Thank you, Becky, for your quilting expertise. For the binding, I decided to use a flange binding method. This binding is made from the same two fabrics from the front of the quilt. I like this binding because it's machine sewn on the back and the front, so no hand sewing is required. I also like the look the flange gives, some extra interest and a little break between all of the blue fabric. You can find a link to the tutorial for this binding on our website. I hope you enjoyed learning to make this Hunter's Star quilt. Like and share our videos, and if you're not a subscriber, subscribe to our channel so you won't miss future videos. Help us spread our videos by sharing them with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and Instagram. Visit our website, needlepointers.com, for lots of other quilting tutorials and free projects. While you're there, sign up for our free weekly newsletter so you won't miss new tutorials. Happy quilting!